over the guy part first, just these two models, that's it. And then we'll go over the woman, who I have really just these three models. This one I never used on test, but I'll just cover real quick. And then the anatomy table, I have three of the cadavers up, 3 out of 5. We can maybe look at the other two as well, and we can get out the cats to look at them for urinary system and reproductive system. There's not much, just look, it's like, there's that stuff. And then we could do labs for labs, or we could just go. There's like 5 labs for labs for the reproductive system. So we'll see. Okay. So let's start with the scrotum. So here's the scrotum. The line that runs down the scrotum is called the raphe. The raphe is literally the same thing as a woman's labia minora. The scrotum is literally the same thing as a woman's labia majora. Okay, so scrotum, raphe. Okay, then here is showing this would be the cremaster muscle, and there's another muscle in the scrotum called a dartos. Dartos muscle. I always mix up dartos and detrusor. So detrusor is in the bladder, dartos is in the scrotum. And here's another one I always forgot. I would always have to look it up until last semester, I think. I finally just clicked an easy but inappropriate way to remember it. But this is the cremaster muscle. What they do are the cremaster muscle allows the testicles to go up when you're cold and down when you're hot. Then what the dartos muscle does is it wrinkles the scrotum and pushes the testicles up further into the abdominal cavity. Because that happens right when a guy ejaculates. The scrotum goes, and testicles go up. Because that signals the sperm to go through the ductus deferens to enter the prostatic urethra, and then you ejaculate. So, I always mixed up cremaster muscle and dartos muscle, not mixed them up, but forgot how to remember them. Thought about something that's inappropriate, but think for a guy to masturbate, it goes up and down. And so cremaster muscle makes the testicles go up and down. So that's just an easy way for me to remember now. So cremaster muscle makes the scrotum go up and down. Dartos muscle is not shown. This is the testicle, epididymis. Then this is the spermatic cord. There are multiple things in the spermatic cord. The kind of pink thing here would be the vas deferens or ductus deferens. The red would be the testicular artery, and blue would be the pampiniform plexus, which are the veins. But you have a lot more of the veins because they act like a heat sink or a radiator to suck away the heat from the testicular artery, so the blood going down the testicles is slightly cooler than your blood in your body. Because your testicles need to be about 3 degrees Celsius cooler than the rest of your body for good sperm production. Okay, so then the spermatic cord comes up through here. It goes in, the vas deferens goes in through the inguinal canal, passed through that, and then comes here and it fuses on the back of the bladder with your seminal vesicle. So here's vas deferens or ductus deferens. That's urethra, or not, sorry, ureter. Vas deferens. Okay, I don't know why that. The computer's shut down, but went to sleep just a second. Are one of these still playing? One of the last or last. This one. Okay, that won't do it. Now, vas deferens or ductus deferens, and then seminal vesicles here and here. Your ductus deferens and seminal vesicles fuse together to form a single opening or single tube called an ampulla. And then that goes through the prostate gland through the ejaculatory duct. It's kind of shown here. So this would be, that's trying to depict the ejaculatory duct right there. I will show you better on the Nammage table where that is. Okay. Then here we have your urethra. You have your, and here's prostate gland, there. You have your prostatic urethra, here. Membranous urethra, there. And penile or spongy urethra, there. Here would be your internal urinary sphincter, which does play a role in men because it prevents urine from contaminating your emissions, because the acidic urine would kill the sperm. And then here's part of your external urethral sphincter, there. They have on both sides here. That's the whole external urethral sphincter. They got rid of one side here so you could see the bulbourethral gland. So this is your bulbourethral gland or Cowper's gland. It sends pre-ejaculate out a few minutes before ejaculation. And again, do realize that sometimes this pre-ejaculate can contain sperm, and you can get pregnant with the pull-out method, because sperm can come out before the guy ejaculates. Okay. Then with the penis, we have two corpus cavernosa on top. Here we're only seeing one, but there's two on top. Inside the body, it veers off to the left and right to form the crus of the penis. Then this whole thing here is the corpus spongiosum. Inside the body, it enlarges to form the bulb of the penis. And outside on the end of the penis, it enlarges to form the glans penis. There. And then, prepuce or foreskin. Shaft, penis, head, or glans penis. That's everything. It's not much. And so most of that will be on the test. Okay, I have one more model that shows the male reproductive system just a little bit. Right here is a bladder. This here is your vas deferens or ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, and prostate gland. Okay, now I'll just move this over. Also, just this really quick. I've never tested on it, but breast, nipple, areola, and really just these bumps that some women have. Some women don't. They're not visible, but those bumps are the areola glands that produce a little bit of a mucus to prevent chafing during breastfeeding. Okay. Oh, and I guess these are the mammary glands and fat. Start with this one. So here, from this view, this is the vulva. With your vulva, you have your labia majora fused together to form the mons pubis, or this fat pad that sits in front of the symphysis pubis. Everything between the labia majora is the pudendal cleft. Here are the labia minora. They fuse together to form the clitoral hood, but it's not shown on this model, really. It's in there. Everything between the labia minora is the vestibule. And there's the vaginal opening, your clinical perineum, there, and then anus. Before we go inside, we can see more stuff here. So this is the ovary. This is the fallopian tube or uterine tube with fimbriae that pull the egg in. I paused it. Okay, and I muted it. Okay, so hopefully that won't happen. And it's unpaused again. I do not know why. I'll click off of that tab to go in a different tab. See that. Okay, ovary, fallopian tube or uterine tube, fimbriae. This is the ovarian ligament that goes from the ovary to the uterus. This is all the broad ligament, all of this here. There. The part of the broad ligament not going to the ovary, not really shown on this model, is the mesotherium. And then above the mesotherium, the broad ligament is called the mesosalpinx. And other side, same thing. Ovary, fallopian tube, fimbriae, ovarian ligament, broad ligament. Uterus here. I never had this part. There must have been another part that went on top of this at some point in time, but I don't have it. It's all for the holes. So here's your uterus, and we can see the fundus, body, and down there is the cervix. And then the layers, you have your perimetrium, which is your broad ligament, which is part of your peritoneum. Myometrium, which is smooth muscles where you get cramps and contractions during childbirth. Then endometrium that grows and then sheds, grows and then sheds. There. Now I'll take it in half and look up the inside. So here, starting on the outside stuff, this is the labia majora, fusing together to form the mons pubis, which is this fat pad in front of your symphysis pubis. Symphysis pubis is that cartilage pad, this right here, fiber cartilage there, that allows women's hips to flare out when they're pregnant. So right in front of that is that fat pad that guys don't have unless they're fat, but girls have that. Okay. Then labia minora here, fused together to form the clitoral hood or prepuce, which is the same thing as a guy's foreskin, but that's not really shown on this model very well. And here's some of the clitoris there. The external urethral orifice, vaginal orifice, and anus. Here's your vagina. These little ridges here, these are your transverse rugae, I think. Transverse rugae. And then right here, on the front side, are some columns that go up and down. Those are called longitudinal columns. Right there. Well, it's not on the model, but that's where they are. On the front side, right there. And then the longitudinal columns and the transverse rugae allow the vagina to expand when it takes in the penis, and then expand way more when it takes in or lets out the baby. Okay, and then we can see this uterus side. You have your fundus at the top, body here, and then cervix here. That's everything. On this model, I have two more. Okay. Then okay. So here's the vagina with those transverse rugae, I think they're called. I hope I'm right on that one. I might be wrong. Okay, and then this is the fornix, where the cervix sticks down into the vagina a little bit, and this is where sperm can hide for a few days before you ovulate. Because before you ovulate, you have a mucus plug, which I'll show you over here. That the sperm can't go into the uterus until you ovulate. But they can hide in here for up to 6 days and live. Now, the vagina is acidic, and so that's not a good environment for sperm to live in, so they don't live well. So that's not common to get pregnant 6 days later, but it's possible. So you can have sex, 6 days later ovulate, and then fertilize the egg. Okay, here's the uterus. The sections are the fundus. Really annoying. I'll mute them all individually. So I muted that one. There's 5 of them. I'm going to mute each one in case the one that decides to start up playing randomly will be muted. And the computer is muted. I don't know how it's playing. fundus, body, cervix, layers endometrium, myometrium, parametrium. There's also the isthmus part is right here, but I won't test over that. It's where the fallopian tube goes in through the uterus. That part. On ovary, there's your ovary. This is the ovarian ligament going to the ovary, and this is the suspensory ligament that's going to go up to the abdominal wall and hold the ovary in place. This is the fallopian tube or uterine tube with fimbriae. And then we have the oocyte and corona radiata have ovulated out, have left. And then here's a sperm now fertilizing it. These are follicles that haven't developed yet. These are the Graafian cells that are remaining behind after the egg just ovulated. Seven days later, what we have, that's dimmer than I thought it was. Sorry. Okay, so won't go over the same old stuff, but here's newer stuff that's in here. This is the mucus plug. This forms every single month. It forms after you stop menstruating, your menses stops. And then a weak one forms every month for about a week or so between when your menstruation stops and your ovulation begins, like a week to 10 days-ish. And then it falls out on the day you ovulate. And then when you're pregnant, a thicker, stronger one forms that lasts the whole 9 months. And this will then fall out when your water breaks. And all the amniotic fluid comes out, that will wash this out when it comes out. And during the same time, your cervix is starting to dilate. So, cervix starts to dilate and amniotic fluid comes out. This is the remaining granulosa cells that turned into the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is what produces estrogen and progesterone during the first trimester, half of the second trimester, and then not in the third trimester. This is a blastocyst or blastula, same exact thing, just different words. Here, embedding the uterine wall. This out here is the trophoblast that will give rise to the placenta. I do have a placenta on that model back there, but I've never used that model for anything, just placenta. And you can see the umbilical, the two umbilical, I'll grab it, I'll just grab it after this. I'll cover it. So here's the trophoblast, and there's an inner cell mass that will form the embryo and your amniotic sac and yolk sac as well. That's it. And now the only model I purchased during this job is this one. I wanted more details. Okay, so here starting, this is the ovary. And this one, let me think, let's actually, this is going towards the uterus here. So the uterus is over here. So that means that makes that the ovarian ligament. Because the ovarian ligament goes to the uterus, and the uterus would be over here because it's going to it. And that would make this one the suspensory ligament going up to the abdominal wall. This is the fallopian tube or uterine tube with fimbriae. And here is the broad ligament. The section that's going like to the ovary, so this section right there, that would be like here, kind of the more horizontal part, would be the mesovarium. The part that's then going up would be mesosalpinx. If I asked that, I'd be pretty lenient between those three. I mean, broad ligament would always be correct, but I mean, is this actually the mesovarium or mesosalpinx? It's a model, so it's hard to kind of tell. But the mesovarium goes to the ovary, mesosalpinx goes up to the fallopian tube. It went to sleep and it's muted. So Now, to the follicles. So that would be a primordial follicle with a single layer of simple squamous granulosa cells. This would be a primary follicle with stratified cuboidal granulosa cells and a zona pellucida forming. You can't see the details, but they would be there. Then this would be a secondary follicle. This one is going to be going to the medulla to get degraded, because this one must be producing more estrogen. This one's producing less estrogen, so the one that produces the most estrogen lives. The ones that produce less estrogen get degraded away. Then, when the fluid-filled cavity forms one gigantic antrum, and the whole thing gets bigger and everything, and you get thicker theca on the outside, zona pellucida, antrum, and then here is your egg. There's an actual term for that. My mind's gone blank on the term for the egg inside the mature follicle. And then here it is showing it just ovulated out right there. And then the granulosa cells left behind become the corpus luteum. And if you're pregnant, this will persist for about the first, your whole pregnancy, but it'll be making your estrogen and progesterone for the first half. Completely the first trimester, half of it second trimester, not at all in the third trimester. And then if you're not pregnant, it degrades to the corpus albicans. Think albicans, think albino, that means white. And so it goes from yellow to white, and it stops producing progesterone and estrogen. And the lack of estrogen makes you in bad mood, and the lack of progesterone makes your uterine wall shed, and your period starts. And then this would be, here is the oocyte. And I'm gonna guess right here, I think they're trying to say that's the first polar body, is my guess. But that's the oocyte. This space right here, that's the zona pellucida proteins that with ZP3 protein that the receptor binds onto, and sperm then recognize it and start taking its way through. And then these cells here are leftover granulosa cells or Graafian cells called the corona radiata or radiant crown around the oocyte. And sperm have to dig their way through these cells, bind onto ZP3, use enzymes to dig their way through the zona pellucida, reach the egg, bind onto integrin. One sperm head enters the egg, and then the egg instantaneously shrinks away from the zona pellucida. So then there's a little gap that sperm have a hard time crossing, and prevents multiple sperm from fertilizing the egg. That's it on the models. It's not that much. So we will go over the nanomodels table, and then we'll get the cats out, and then that will leave us with about 50 minutes left. So I do have 5 labs left we can do. We can only do 2 of them at most, or 1, or you guys can study, or you can go. I'm not as worried. Okay, so I do have 3 cadavers open. I can open up 2 more, but let's go over these 2 first. So this here, the guy. I think it's slow because I have 3 open. That's the maximum that they suggest to have open at once. Actually, let's leave the bladder for now. Okay. So here we can see penis and the glans penis. And then we'll get into that at the end, but we can start with scrotum here. So here is your scrotum. There's a bunch of layers. There's like 5 layers of things you have to go through before you even get to the vas deferens. But there's fascia here. That's just some fascia. This is the tunica vaginalis of the testicle. So remember when the testicles descended through the inguinal canal, a little bit of peritoneum came with it. And that little bit of peritoneum, that serous-filled sac, is still around the testicles. It's the only thing that guys have protecting the testicles from physical impact. So this little fluid-filled sac protects the testicles from impact. Other than that, it's behaviors. Guys just know that it hurts a lot, because it does, and so guys control their behaviors to make sure they don't get injured there, because otherwise it's very much exposed. That's the tunica vaginalis. Okay? Let's take it off on this one here. Okay, so here's the tunica albuginea of the testicle. That's the outer layer of like thick connective tissue that extends into the testicle in things called septa that divide the testicle into a bunch of little chambers, and those chambers are then filled with the seminiferous tubules. So, I'll get rid of this on this one. Keep the other testicle intact in case we want to go in and look more. There's the actual testicle there, and then I think it just goes away. Yeah. Okay. And then here's the epididymis. So this at the top is head, body, and then tail. The sperm mature in the head and body and then gets stored in the tail. And then after that, let's go around the back side here. So that little curly part there, squiggly part on the bottom, that's where it would be stored. That'd be the tail. And then here's the ductus deferens or vas deferens. Before we go on, let's see if there's anything to see inside of these. I'm gonna dissect them. Nothing to make out. They're just solid, filled with seminiferous tubules. So the resolution is not high enough to see the details. But while we're here, we can see the three tubes of the penis there. So you chew corpus cavernosa at the top, corpus spongiosum, and the urethra is right there. You can see it, the shiny part here. There is the spongiopenile urethra. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of this. Go back there. Okay, so now follow the ductus deferens. It goes up into the abdominal pelvic cavity, wraps around to the backside of the bladder, where it fuses together with your seminal vesicles. So they fuse together to form this little thing here called they don't have it separated, but it forms an ampulla. I might be able to see it if I go right back. So here, this is the ejaculatory duct. But right when it fuses together, actually the top of this really, I'd say this part right here, that would be the ampulla where they fuse together, because they're completely separate still. So that would be the ampulla where they fuse together, and then the rest of the ejaculatory duct goes down through the prostate gland. And you have two ejaculatory ducts, one on each side. Okay, let's go to that. Then go back to the back side. I'm just leaving the bladder there for reference, and the semivesicles are on the back of it. Prostate, I'll make it transparent so you can see through it. Okay, so there it's transparent, and you can see the two ejaculatory ducts running into the prostatic urethra. What is this? No, it's just the opening for the prostate. Okay. I was just trying to figure out this other little pinkish thing, what that was right there. So, and then there's your prostatic urethra. This is your membranous urethra, because if we go here and go muscles, abdomen, there is the extraurethral sphincter. So it goes around penis or the membranous urethra, and this is what keeps you continent, so you're not peeing your pants, is their extraurethral sphincter.
These are the Cowper's glands or bulb